some Harry Potter dubstep for you that I found today. Wait, check out this sweet drop from this dubstep Harry Potter theme. All right, enough of that. Enough of that. Let's put the regular music on. Okay, hey everybody. Still wait a little bit until other people join. Hey Hayden, I don't think I've seen you on here. Good to see ya. I found some glasses. They're not the black ones, and they're pretty dirty, but I think I can use these tonight. Hey, Dexter's not in frame, but I don't want to disturb him, so I'll leave him be. The name of the song is called Harry Potter Expecto Patronum Goblin from Mars Trap Remix. At least I think that's what it's called. Yeah. Maybe I'll find something new every single day. Who knows? Okay, hey everybody. Again, for those of you who are new, who haven't been a part of this yet, I'm reading Harry Potter every day. I have not read the books. I have seen 3, I think, of the movies back in the day, very first 2, and I think the last one. Don't really remember anything about it. I was also a little confused because I didn't read the books. Yeah, and I'm doing this because just to give you some time away from thinking about everything that's going on right now. Just a little relief in your day. Question to everybody. Would you, because I like reading the comments and I like... nice drinking game. I like interacting with you, but I don't necessarily want to break it up every single time and read and then. So what would you prefer? I'm gonna do it the same way I do it every single time, but tell me whether you would like me to stop after every page to read and interact with you, or to just go through and not break up the flow. You let me know. Mark's here. Mark's for assistance. He's hanging out to give me pronunciation tips as we go through. Okay, so what happened till now? Harry lives with a crappy family. Got dropped off as a baby on the doorstep by McGonagall. McGonagall and Dumbledore. The family's super crappy. They take him on a trip, and then suddenly he's just getting a whole bunch of random letters. They're overflowing. Something magical is happening for sure. And the dad goes a bit crazy trying to get away from these letters. Then there's a giant who suddenly pops up in their cabin and is furious at these muggles for not telling Harry who he is. And we're just about to find out who he is. So if you're following along, if you have this book, it's on page 44. Let's get this going. Hagrid will probably start talking here pretty closely. Okay, I'm going to turn down the music a bit more. There. Okay, I hope you can still hear that. So we're going to start from, but why, what happened, when Harry asked urgently. But why? What happened? Harry asked urgently. The anger faded from Hagrid's face. He looked suddenly anxious.
I never expected this, he said in a low, worried voice. I had no idea when Dumbledore told me there might be trouble getting hold of you. How much you didn't know. Ah, Harry, I don't know if I'm the right person to tell you, but someone's gotta. You can't go off to Hogwarts not knowing.
He threw a dirty look at the Dursleys.
Well, it's best you know as much as I can tell you. Mind, I can't tell you everything. It's a great mystery, parts of it.
He sat down, stared into the fire for a few seconds, and then said,
It begins, I suppose, with a person called... But it's incredible. It's incredible you don't know his name. Everyone in our world knows.
Who?
Well, I don't like saying the name if I can help it. No one does.
Why not?
Gulpin' gargoyles.
Gulpin' gargoyles. Okay.
Gulpin' gargoyles, Harry. People are still scared. Blimey, this is difficult. See, there was this wizard who went bad. As bad as you could go. Worse. Worse than worse. His name was...
Hagrid gulped, but no words came out. Could you write it down? Harry suggested.
No, can't spell it. All right. Voldemort.
I guess he'd like whisper that instead of like yelling it out loud.
Voldemort.
Hagrid shuddered.
Don't make me say it again. Anyway, this wizard, about 20 years ago, started looking for followers. Got 'em too. Some were afraid. Some just wanted a bit of his power, because he was getting himself power, all right. Dark days, Harry. Didn't know who to trust. Didn't dare get friendly with strange wizards or witches. Terrible things. Terrible things happened. It was taken over. Course, some stood up to him, and he killed them. Horribly. One of the only safe places left was Hogwarts. Reckon Dumbledore's the only one you know who was afraid of. Didn't dare try taking to school. Not just then, anyway. Now, your mum and dad were as good a witch and wizard as I ever knew. Head boy and girl at Hogwarts in their day. Suppose the mystery is why you know who never tried to get him on his side before. Probably knew they were too close to Dumbledore. To want anything to do with the dark side. Maybe he thought he could persuade him. Maybe he just wanted him out of the way. All anyone knows is he turned up in the village where you was all living on Halloween 10 years ago. He was just a year old. He came to your house and Hagrid suddenly pulled out a very dirty spotted handkerchief and blew his nose with a sound like a foghorn. Sorry, he said, but that's sad. Knew your mum and dad and nicer people you couldn't find. Anyway, you know who killed them. And this is the real mystery of the thing. He tried to kill you too. Wanted to make a clean job of it, I suppose. Or maybe he just liked killing by then, but he couldn't do it. Never wondered how you got that mark on your forehead? That was no ordinary cut. That's where you got when a powerful, evil curse touches you. Took care of your mum and dad and your house even. But it didn't work on you. And that's why you're famous, Harry. No one ever lived after he decided to kill him. No one except you. And he'd killed some of the best witches and wizards of the age. The McKinnons, the Bones, the Pruitts. And you was only a baby. And you lived. Okay, so a lot of exposure right there. Yeah. By the way, feel free to throw out some suggestions at any point. I do read all these after as I go through and I read all the comments. So if you have any, questions or suggestions, I take them in willingly. Hey, Jameson. That's Jameson. It's cadavra, not cadavra. Well, I don't even know. Okay, here we go. Something very painful was going on in Harry's mind. As Hagrid's story came to a close, he saw again the blinding flash of green light, more clearly than he had ever remembered it before. And he remembered something else. For the first time in his life, a high, cold, cruel laugh. Hagrid was watching him sadly. Took you from the ruined house myself, on Dumbledore's orders. Brought you to this lot. Load of old tosh, said Uncle Vernon. Harry jumped. He had almost forgotten that the Dursleys were there. Uncle Vernon certainly seemed to have got back his courage. He was glaring at Hagrid, and his fists were clenched. Now you listen here, boy, he snarled. I accept there's something strange about you, but probably nothing a good beating wouldn't have cured. And as for all this about your parents, well, they were weirdos, no denying it, and the world's better off without... I'm mixing up the voices here. 1 second. And the world's better off without them, in my opinion. That's it, he's back. As for all they got, getting mixed up with these wizarding types, just what I expected. Always knew they'd come to a sticky end. But at that moment, Hagrid leapt from the sofa and drew a battered pink umbrella from inside his coat. Pointing this at Uncle Vernon like a sword, he said, I'm warning you, Dursley. I'm warning you. One more word. In danger of being speared on the end of an umbrella by a bearded giant, Uncle Vernon's courage failed again. He flattened himself against the wall and fell silent. That's better, said Hagrid, breathing heavily and sitting back down on the sofa, which this time sagged right down to the floor.
Harry, meanwhile, still had questions to ask. Hundreds of them. But what happened to Sorry, I mean, you know who.
Good question, Harry. Disappeared. Vanished. Same night he tried to kill you. Makes you even more famous. That's the biggest mystery, see? He was getting more and more powerful. Why'd he go? Some say he died. Codswallop, in my opinion. Dunno if he had enough human left in him to die. Some say he's still out there, biding his time, but I don't believe it. People who was on his side came back to ours. Some of them came out of kind of trances. Don't reckon they could have done if he was coming back. Most of us reckon he's still out there somewhere, but lost his powers. Too weak to carry on. 'Cause something about you finished him, Harry. There was something going on that night he hadn't counted on. I don't know what it was. No one does. But something about you stumped him all right.
Hagrid looked at Harry with warmth and respect blazing in his eyes. But Harry, instead of feeling pleased and proud, felt quite sure that had been a horrible mistake. A wizard? Him? How could he possibly be? He'd spent his life being clouted by Dudley and bullied by Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon. If he was really a wizard, why hadn't they been turned into warty toads every time they tried to lock him in his cupboard? If he'd once defeated the greatest sorcerer in the world, how come Dudley had always been able to kick him around like a football? Okay, so I'm getting a bit more of that respect that everybody's giving him because he survived the one who shall not be named, or you know who, killing him, and then Voldemort just disappeared. Jane said, oh, by the way, I'm going to upload the first 2 videos into Instagram TV. So I'm going to do this, I think tomorrow or the day after. I'm going to upload every day, so you can still catch up anytime you've missed out on anything. Hey, Julie. Oh, no, here we go. Hagrid, he said quietly, I think you must have made a mistake. I don't think I can be a wizard. To his surprise, Hagrid chuckled.
Not a wizard, eh? Never made things happen when you were scared or angry?
Harry looked into the fire. Now he came to think about it. Every odd thing that had ever made his aunt and uncle furious with him had happened when he, Harry, had been upset or angry. Chased by Dudley's gang, he had somehow found himself out of their reach. Dreading going back to school with that ridiculous haircut, he'd managed to make it grow back. And the very last time Dudley had hit him, hadn't he got his revenge without even realizing he was doing it? Hadn't he set a boa constrictor on him? Harry looked back at Hagrid, smiling, and saw that Hagrid was positively beaming at him.
See, said Hagrid. Harry Potter, not a wizard. You wait. You'll be right famous at Hogwarts.
But Uncle Vernon wasn't going to give in without a fight. Oh, Hagrid and Vernon have... Oh, it's hard to differentiate in my mind.
Haven't I told you he's not going? He hissed. He's going to Stonewall High, and he'll be grateful for it. I've read those letters, and he needs all sorts of rubbish, spell books and wands, and if he wants to go, a great muggle like you won't stop him, growled Hagrid. Stop Lily and Jane Potter's son going to Hogwarts. You're mad. His name's been down ever since he was born. He's off to the finest school of witchcraft and wizardry in the world. 7 years there, and he won't know himself. He'll be with youngsters of his own sort for a change, and he'll be under the greatest headmaster Hogwarts ever had, Albus Dumbledore. I'm not paying for some crock-pot old fool to teach him magic tricks,
yelled Uncle Vernon. So, with my voices, Vernon and Dudley are definitely related. They got a similar thing going on. So maybe I should, no, I'll keep Petunia in our own world. But he had finally gone too far. Hagrid seized his umbrella and whirled it over his head.
Never, he thundered, insult Albus Dumbledore in front of me!
He brought the umbrella swishing down through the air to point at Dudley. There was a flash of violet light, a sound like a firecracker, a sharp squeal, and next second, Dudley was dancing on the spot with his hands clasped over his fat bottom, howling in pain. When he turned his back on them, Harry saw a curly pig's tail poking through a hole in his trousers. What? Okay. So, okay. So, what's this giant's name again? Hagrid. So he's also some sort of a wizard. He's sort of magical himself as well, right? I mean, don't spoil it for me. Yeah, maybe. Who knows? He's got some pig powers. I'm calling them pig powers. Okay. Uncle Vernon roared, pulling Aunt Petunia and Dudley into the other room. He cast one last terrified look at Hagrid and slammed the door behind him. Hagrid looked down at his umbrella and stroked his beard.
Oh, should have lost me temper, he said ruefully. But it didn't work anyway. Meant to turn him into a pig, but I suppose he was so much like a pig anyway, there wasn't much left to do.
He cast a sideways look at Harry under his bushy eyebrows.
Be grateful if you didn't mention that to anyone at Hogwarts, he said. I'm, not supposed to do magic, strictly speaking. I was allowed to do a bit for a bit to follow you and get your letters to you and stuff. One of the reasons I was so keen to take on the job.
Why aren't you supposed to do magic? Asked Harry.
Oh, well, I was at Hogwarts myself, but I, got expelled. To tell you the truth, in me 3rd year, they snapped me wand enough and everything. But Dumbledore let me stay on as gamekeeper. Great man, Dumbledore.
Why were you expelled?
It's getting late and we've got lots to do tomorrow, said Hagrid loudly. Gotta get up to town, get all your books and that.
He took off his thick black coat and threw it to Harry.
You can keep under that, he said. Don't mind if it wriggles a bit. I think I still got a couple of dormice in one of the pockets.
Dormice. Don't know what that is either. That's the end of that chapter. Nice. Okay. I'm finding out more about Harry's history and Hagrid's hysterics. Okay. Hey, Troy. Liked watching your live stream today. Troy does a game show every day. He's a fantastic painter, and at the end of the season, however long it takes, if you're playing along every day, he's got a really amazing painting he's going to give away to the winner. It's a really fun thing. So follow Troy and play the game every day with him. Hagrid is a truly beautiful person. You're right. I'm feeling that when I'm reading it. I feel a connection to him. Out of anybody, I'm feeling connected to Hagrid the most. Chapter 5, Diagon Alley or Diagon. Diagon Alley.
It's a play on diagonally.
Oh, there we go. So I was, by the way, I was born in Germany, grew up in Australia, went back to Germany and moved here. So there's a whole bunch of pronunciation things I'm just going to have to discover as we go on. Hey, maybe I could give away my glasses after. Yeah, maybe. I'll think of that. Maybe I'll come up with a game that we can play tomorrow. Okay. Diagon Alley. Harry woke early the next morning. Although he could tell it was daylight, he kept his eyes shut tight. It was a dream, he told himself firmly. I dreamed a giant called Hagrid came to tell me I was going to a school for wizards. Then I opened my eyes. When I opened my eyes, I'll be at home in my cupboard. There was suddenly a loud tapping noise. And there's Aunt Petunia knocking on the door, Harry thought, his heart sinking. But he still didn't open his eyes. It had been such a good dream. Tap, tap, tap. All right, Harry mumbled. I'm getting up. He sat up, and Hagrid's heavy coat fell off him. The hut was full of sunlight. The storm was over. Hagrid himself was asleep on the collapsed sofa, and there was an owl rapping its claw on the window, a newspaper held in its beak. Okay, I think I remember now owls being around. Harry scrambled to his feet, so happy he felt as though a large balloon was swelling inside him. He went straight to the window and jerked it open. The owl swooped in and dropped the newspaper on top of Hagrid, who didn't wake up. What a deep sleeper. The owl then fluttered onto the floor and began to attack Hagrid's coat. What the heck? This psycho owl? Here, have a newspaper and screw your coat. Don't do that. Harry tried to wave the owl out of the way, but it snapped its beak fiercely at him and carried on savaging the coat. This is psycho owl. Hagrid, said Harry loudly. There's an owl.
Pay him.
Hagrid grunted into the sofa. What?
He wants paying for delivering the paper. Look in the pockets.
Hagrid's coat seemed to be made of nothing but pockets. Bunches of keys, slug pellets, balls of string, mint humbugs, tea bags. Finally, Harry pulled out a handful of strange-looking coins.
Give him five nuts,
Said Hagrid sleepily. Nuts?
the little bronze ones.
Harry counted out 5 little bronze coins, and the owl held out its leg so he could put the money into a small leather pouch tied to it. Then it flew off through the open window. Okay, so not a psycho owl, just an owl who wants to be paid for his damn work. You know, I'd be pretty angry too if I delivered a pizza and somebody was asleep, dropped the pizza on his head and started attacking his coat. All right, Hagrid yawned loudly, sat up and stretched.
Best be off, Harry. Lots to do today. Gotta get up to London and buy all your stuff for school.
Harry was turning over the wizard coins and looking at them. He had just thought of something which made him feel as though the happy balloon inside him had got a puncture. Hagrid? Said Hagrid, who was pulling on his huge boots. I haven't got any money. And you heard Uncle Vernon last night. He won't pay for me to go and learn magic.
Don't worry about that,
Said Hagrid, standing up and scratching his head.
Do you think your parents didn't leave you anything?
But if their house was destroyed...
They didn't keep their gold in the house, boy. Nah. First up for us is Gringotts. Wizard's Bank. Have a sausage, they're not bad cold, and I wouldn't say no to a bit of your birthday cake, neither.
Wizards have banks.
Just the one. Gringotts.
Oh, actually, I am drinking wine. I like having a little wine, but I spilled all my red wine onto the white carpet right before I started recording. So, Gringotts.
Gringotts.
Huh?
Gringotts.
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 Yeah.
Gringotts. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Where were we?
Just the one. Gringotts. Run by goblins.
Harry dropped the bit of sausage he was holding. Goblins?
Yeah.
How would Hagrid say yeah? It's written like a yeah.
Yeah.
I really hope she writes more yeahs into this.
Yeah. So you'd be...
Okay,
So you'd be mad to try and rob it, I'll tell you that. Never mess with goblins, Harry. Gringotts is the safest place in the world for anything you want to keep safe, except maybe Hogwarts. As a matter of fact, I've got to visit Gringotts anyways, for Dumbledore. Hogwarts business.
Hagrid drew himself up proudly.
He usually gets me to do important stuff for him. Fetching you, getting things from Gringotts. Knows he can trust me, see? Got everything? Come on then.
Harry followed Hagrid out onto the rock. The sky was quite clear now, and the sea gleamed in the sunlight. The boat Uncle Vernon had hired was still there, with a lot of water in the bottom of the storm. How did you get here? How did you get here? Harry asked, looking around for another boat.
Flew,
Said Hagrid. Flew?
Yeah.
There it is, back again.
But we'll go back on this. Not supposed to use magic now, I've got ya.
I always imagine him winking a lot. I don't know why. I keep having this instinct to be like,
Nah, meh.
They've settled down on the boat, Harry still staring at Hagrid, trying to imagine him flying.
Seems a shame to row, though,
Said Hagrid, giving Harry another one of his sideways looks.
If I was to speed things up a bit, would you mind not mentioning it at Hogwarts?
Of course not, said Harry, eager to see more magic. Hagrid pulled out the pink umbrella again, tapped it twice on the side of the boat, and they sped off towards land. Why would you be mad to try and... Why would you be mad to try and rob Gringotts? Harry asked.
Spells, enchantments,
Said Hagrid, unfolding his newspaper as he spoke.
They say there's dragons guarding the high security vaults, and then you gotta find your way. Gringotts is hundreds of miles under London, see? Deep under the underground. You die of hunger trying to get out. even if you did manage to get your hands on some of that.
Winking Hagrid is not canon, but you can imagine. Okay. Harry sat and thought about this while Hagrid read his newspaper, the Daily Prophet. Harry had learned from Uncle Vernon that people liked to be left alone while they did this, but it was very difficult. He'd never had so many questions in his life.
Ministry of Magic messing things up as usual,
Hagrid muttered, turning the page. There's a ministry of magic, Harry asked, before he could stop himself.
Of course,
said Hagrid.
They wanted Dumbledore for minister, of course, but he'd never leave Hogwarts, so old Cornelius Fudge got the job. Bungler, if there ever was one. So he pelts Dumbledore with owls every morning. Asking for advice.
You're fine on my end.
Yeah, back? Okay. But what does a ministry...
It did freeze, but I think it's back.
Back? Not frozen? Okay. But what does a Ministry of Magic do?
Well, their main job is to keep it from the muggles that there's still witches and wizards up and down the country.
Why?
Why? Blimey, Harry. Everyone would be wanting magic solutions to their problems now. We're best left alone.
At this moment, the boat bumped gently into the harbour wall. Hagrid folded up his newspaper and they clambered up the stone steps onto the street. Passers-by stared a lot at Hagrid as they walked through the little town to the station. Harry couldn't blame them. Not only was Hagrid twice as tall as anyone else, he kept pointing at perfectly ordinary things like parking meters and saying loudly,
"See that, Harry? Things these muggles dream up, eh?"
Hagrid, said Harry, pointing a bit as he ran to keep up. Did you say there are dragons at Gringotts?
Well, so they say, said Hagrid. Crikey, I'd like a dragon.
You'd like one?
Wanted one ever since I was a kid. Here we go.
They'd reached the station. There was a train to London in 5 minutes' time. Hagrid, who didn't understand muggle money, as he called it, gave the notes to Harry so he could buy their tickets. People stared more than ever on the train. Hagrid took up 2 seats and sat knitting what looked like a canary yellow circus tent. Okay, I like Hagrid a lot. He's just like, I don't understand money, and also I'm going to knit on this train. He seems like one of those guys who doesn't know how big he is, like how ginormous, like 2 times the size of another human. He's like, yeah, this is who I am. This is just how I live in the world. He doesn't understand how huge he is.
Still got your letter, Harry?
He asked as he counted stitches. Harry took the parchment envelope out of his pocket.
Good,
said Hagrid.
There's a list there of everything you need.
Harry unfolded a second piece of paper he hadn't noticed the night before and read, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Uniform. First-year students will require 1. 3 sets of plain work robes, black. 2. 1 plain pointed hat. 1 plain pointed hat, black for day wear. 3. 1 pair of protective gloves, dragon hide or similar. 4. 1 winter cloak, black, silver fastenings. Please note that all pupils' clothes should carry name tags. Set books. All students should have a copy of each of the following. The Standard Book of Spells, Grade 1, by Miranda Goshawk. A History of Magic, by Bathilda Bagshot. Magical Theory, by Adalbert Waffling. A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration, by Emmerich Switch. 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi, by Philida Spore. Magical Drafts and Potions, by Arsenius Jigger. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, by Newt Scamander. Oh, what? Is that a tie-in into the movie universe? The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection by Quentin Trimble. Okay, you know what? I bet on anything that there are fan fiction books of each of these. There's probably, somebody has written full-length books on each one of these books. I bet it. If somebody wants to do the research on that, take a look. Let me know if that's true. But I bet that has happened. Other equipment, 1 wand, 1 cauldron, pewter, standard size 2, 1 set glass or crystal files, 1 telescope, 1 set brass scales, 1 wand. Students may also bring an owl or a cat or a toad. That's good. Parents are reminded that first years are not allowed their own broomsticks. That's in the capital. Okay. Can we buy all this in London? Harry wondered aloud.
If you know where to go,
said Hagrid. Harry had never been to London before. Although Hagrid seemed to know where he was going, he was obviously not used to getting there in an ordinary way. He got stuck in the ticket barrier on the underground and complained loudly that the seats were too small and the trains too slow.
I don't know how the muggles managed without magic.
I was a bit more annoyed, he said as they climbed a broken-down escalator which led up to a bustling road lined with shops. What would I bring? I would bring an owl, because I'm allergic to cats. Yeah, an owl. Hagrid was so huge that he parted the crowd easily. All Harry had to do was keep close behind him. They passed bookshops and music stores, hamburger bars and cinemas, but nowhere that looked hamburger bars. I've never heard anybody call a bar or a hamburger place a hamburger bar. Is that what they say in London? Or in England, I mean? Yeah, we'll see. This was just an ordinary street full of ordinary people. Could there really be piles of wizard gold buried miles beneath them? Were there really shops that sold spell books and broomsticks? Might this not all be some huge joke that the Dursleys had cooked up? If Harry hadn't known that the Dursleys had no sense of humor, he might have thought so. Yet somehow, even though everything Hagrid had told him so far was unbelievable, Harry couldn't help trusting him.
This is it,
said Hagrid, coming to a halt.
The Leaky Cauldron. It's a famous place.
It was in a tiny, grubby-looking pub. If Hagrid hadn't pointed it out, Harry wouldn't have noticed it was there. The people hurrying by didn't glance at it. Their eyes slid from the big bookshop on one side to the record shop on the other, as if they couldn't see the Leaky Cauldron at all. In fact, Harry had the most peculiar feeling that only he and Hagrid could see it. Before he could mention this, Hagrid had steered him inside. For a famous place, it was dark. It was very dark and shabby. A few old women were sitting in a corner, drinking tiny glasses of sherry. One of them was smoking a long pipe. A little man in a top hat was talking to the old barman, who was quite bald and looked like a gummy walnut. That is such a good description, too. That's so good. The low buzz of chatter stopped when they walked in. Everyone seemed to know Hagrid. They waved and smiled at him, and the barman reached for a glass, saying, okay, these one-off characters.
The usual, Hagrid. Can't come. I'm on Hogwarts business,
said Hagrid, clapping his great hand on Harry's shoulder and making Harry's knees buckle.
Good Lord,
said the barman, peering at Harry.
Is this? Can this be?
The Leaky Cauldron had suddenly gone completely still and silent.
Bless my soul,
whispered the old barman.
Harry Potter, what an honor.
He hurried out from behind the bar, rushed towards Harry, and seized his hands, tears in his eyes. For a Kermit character. Oh, you're right. Actually, let's make the barman Kermit, okay?
Welcome back, Mr. Potter. Welcome back.
Harry didn't know what to say. Everyone was looking at him. The old woman with the pipe was puffing on it without realizing it had gone out. Hagrid was beaming. Then there was a great scraping of chairs, and next moment, Harry found himself shaking hands with everyone in the Leaky Cauldron. Okay, here's a whole bunch of voices.
Doris Crockford, Mr. Potter. Can't believe I'm meeting you at last.
So proud, Mr. Potter. I'm just so proud.
How has wanted to shake your hand. I'm all of a flutter.
Delighted, Mr. Potter. Just can't tell you. Diggle's the name. Daedalus Diggle. Okay, is Daedalus Diggle a main character? Because I don't know if I'm going to make that voice. Is Daedalus Diggle a main character?
I don't think so.
No? All right, he's just going to have that voice for now. We'll see. Okay. I've seen you before, said Harry, as Daedalus Diggle's top hat fell off in his excitement. You bowed to me once in a shop. What was his voice? There was so many different voices.
He remembers,
cried Daedalus Diggle, looking around at everyone.
Did you hear that? He remembers me.
I don't know where he's from. I have no idea where he's from. Harry shook hands again and again. Doris Crockford kept coming back for more. A pale young man made his way forward very nervously. One of his eyes was twitching.
Oh, Professor Quirrell, said Hagrid. Harry, Professor Quirrell be one of your teachers at Hogwarts.
Okay. Pale young man, eyes twitching. Potter, stammered Professor Quirrell, grasping Harry's hand. Can't tell you how pleased I am to meet you. What sort of magic do you teach, Professor Quirrell? Defense against the dark arts, muttered Professor Quirrell, as though he'd rather not think about it. Not that you need it, Potter. He laughed nervously. You'll be getting all your equipment, I suppose. I've got to pick up a new book on vampires myself. He looked terrified at the very thought. This guy is obviously... Oh, so I got Quirrell. Oh. Cool. Awesome. But the others wouldn't let Professor Quirrell keep Harry to himself. It took almost 10 minutes to get away from them all. At last, Hagrid managed to make himself heard over the babble.
Must get on. Lots to buy. Come on, Harry.
Doris Crockford shook Harry's hand one last time, and Hagrid led them through the bar and out into a small, walled courtyard, where there was nothing but a dustbin and a few weeds. Hagrid grinned at Harry.
Told you, didn't I? Told you was famous. Even Professor Quirrell was trembling to meet you. Mind you, he's usually trembling.
Is he always that nervous?
Oh, yeah. Poor bloke. Brilliant mind. He was fine while he was studying out of books, but then he took a year off to get some first-hand experience. They say he met vampires in the Black Forest, and there was a nasty bit of trouble with the hag. Never been the same since. Scared of the students, scared of his own subject. Now, where's me umbrella?
Sounds a little Australian at the end there. Vampires? Hags? Harry's head was swimming. Hagrid, meanwhile, was counting bricks in the wall above the dustbin.
3 up, 2 across, he muttered. Right, stand back, Harry.
He tapped the wall 3 times with the point of his umbrella. The brick he had touched quivered. It wriggled. In the middle, a small hole appeared. It grew wider and wider. A second later, they were facing an archway large enough, even for Hagrid, an archway onto a cobbled street, which twisted and turned out of sight. All right, so Hagrid's wand, I guess, is his umbrella. Hey? Yeah, he's tapping the boat. He's tapping some walls.
Welcome, said Hagrid, to Diagon Alley.
He grinned at Harry's amazement. They stepped through the archway. Fitting music. Harry looked quickly over his shoulder and saw the archway shrink instantly back into solid wall. The sun shone brightly onto a stack of cauldrons outside the nearest shop. Cauldrons, all sizes, copper, brass, pewter, silver, self-stirring, and collapsible, said a sign hanging over them.
Yeah, you'll be needing one, said Hagrid, but we gotta get your money first.
Harry wished he had about 8 more eyes. He turned his head in every direction as they walked up the streets, trying to look at everything at once. The shops, the things outside them, the people doing their shopping. A plump woman outside an apothecary was shaking her head as they passed, saying,
Dragon liver. Yeah, dragon liver. 17 sickles an ounce. They're mad.
A low, soft hooting came from a dark shop with a sign saying,
Elop's Owl Emporium. Tawny, Screech, Barn, Brown, and Snowy.
I'm going to do every sign like that, as if it's from the 40s. Several boys of about Harry's age had their noses pressed against the window with broomsticks in it.
Look,
Harry heard one of them say.
The new Nimbus 2000. Fast as ever.
There were shops selling robes, shops selling telescopes, and strange silver instruments Harry had never seen before. Windows stacked with barrels of bat spleens and eel's eyes, tottering piles of spell books, quills and rolls of parchment, potion bottles, globes of the moon.
Gringotts,
said Hagrid. They had reached a snowy white building, which towered over the other little shops. Standing beside its burnished bronze doors, wearing a uniform of scarlet and gold, was,
yeah, that's a goblin.
Funny writing, said Hagrid quietly as they walked up to the white stone steps toward him. The goblin was about a head shorter than Harry. He had a swarthy, clever face, a pointed beard, and, Harry noticed, very long fingers and feet. He bowed as they walked inside. Now they were facing a second pair of doors, silver this time, with words engraved upon them. Thug Hagrid. Yeah, So check this out. When I put my hand towards him, he raises his legs because he wants me to scratch close to his nuts. Every time. One second. Put it back down. Hey, here I come. Okay. So the words engraved upon the doors. Enter, stranger, but take heed of what awaits the sin of greed. For those who take, but do not earn, must pay most dearly in their turn. So if you seek beneath our floors a treasure that was never yours, thief, you have been warned, beware of finding more than treasure there.
Like I said, you'd be mad to try and rob it,
said Hagrid. A pair of goblins bowed them through the silver doors, and they were in a vast marble hall. About 100 more goblins were sitting on high stools behind a long counter, scribbling in large ledgers, weighing coins in brass scales, examining precious stones through eyeglasses. There were too many doors to count leading off the hall, and yet more goblins were showing people in and out of these. Hagrid and Harry made for the counter.
Morning,
said Hagrid to a free goblin.
We've come to take some money out of Mr. Harry Potter's safe.
Okay, goblins. How do goblins sound?
You got his key, sir?
Got it here somewhere,
said Hagrid, and started emptying his pockets onto the counter, scattering a handful of moldy dog biscuits over the goblin's book of numbers. The goblin wrinkled his nose. Harry watched the goblin on the right, weighing a pile of rubies as big as glowing coals.
Got it,
said Hagrid at last, holding up a tiny golden key. The goblin looked at it closely.
That seems to be in order.
And I've also got a letter here from Professor Dumbledore,
said Hagrid importantly, throwing out his chest.
It's about the you-know-what in Vault 713.
The goblin read the letter carefully.
Very well,
he said, handing it back to Hagrid.
I will have someone take you down to both vaults. Grip Hook!
Grip Hook was yet another goblin. Once Hagrid had crammed all the dog biscuits back inside his pockets. He and Harry followed Grip Hook towards one of the doors leading up the hall. What's the you-know-what in Vault 713? Harry asked.
Can't tell you that,
said Hagrid mysteriously.
Very secret Hogwarts business. Dumbledore's trusted me. More my job's worth to tell you that.
Hey, buddy. You wake up? Hey? Grip Hook held the door open for them. Harry, who had expected more marble, was surprised. They were in a narrow stone passageway lit with flaming torches. It sloped steeply downwards, and there were little railway tracks on the floor. Grip Hook whistled, and a small cart came hurtling up the tracks towards them. They climbed in, Hagrid with some difficulty, and were off. At first, they just hurtled through a maze of twisting passages. Harry tried to remember left, right, right, left, middle fork, right, left, but it was impossible. The rattling cart seemed to know its own way because Grip Hook wasn't steering. Harry's eyes stung as the cold air rushed past them, but he kept them wide open. Once, he thought he saw a burst of fire at the end of a passage, and twisted around to see if it was a dragon. But too late. They plunged even deeper, passing an underground lake where huge stalactites and stalagmites grew from the ceiling and floor. I never know, Harry called to Hagrid over the noise of the cart. What's the difference between a stalagmite and a stalactite?
Stalagmite's got an M in it, said Hagrid. And don't ask me questions just now. I think I'm going to be sick.
He did look very green, and when the cart stopped at last beside a small door in the passage wall, Hagrid got out and had to lean against the wall to stop his knees trembling. Grip Hook unlocked the door. A lot of green smoke came billowing out, and as it cleared, Harry gasped. Inside were mounds of gold coins, columns of silver, heaps of little bronze nuts.
All yours,
smiled Hagrid. All Harry's? It was incredible. The Dursleys couldn't have known about this, or they'd have had it from him faster than blinking. How often had they complained how much Harry cost them to keep, and all that time there'd been a small fortune belonging to him, buried deep under London. Hagrid helped Harry pile of it into a bag. Hey, you want to come back? What's going on? Come on. Come on. Nope. Okay. Hagrid helped Harry pile some of it into a bag.
The gold ones are galleons.
Galleons?
Galleons.
he explained.
17 silver sickles to a gallon, and 29 nuts to a sickle. It's easy enough, right? That should be enough for a couple of terms. We'll keep the rest safe for you.
He turned to Griphook.
Vault 713 now. And can we go more slowly?
One speed only,
said Griphook. They were going even deeper now and gathering speed. The air became colder and colder as they hurtled round tight corners. They went rattling over an underground ravine, and Harry leant over the side to try and see what was down at the dark bottom, but Hagrid groaned and pulled him back by the scruff of his neck. Vault 713 had no keyhole.
Stand back,
said Griphole importantly. He stroked the door gently with one of his long fingers. It simply melted away. That's him stroking it. Okay, come on away. He wants back up. Come on, come here, come on. He just doesn't trust himself to jump up. There we go. He stroked the door gently with one of his long fingers, and it simply melted away. Said Griphook, okay.
If anyone but a Gringotts goblin tried that, they'd be sucked through the door and trapped in there,
said Griphook. How often do you check to see if anyone's inside? Harry asked.
About once every 10 years,
said Griphook, with a rather nasty grin. Something really extraordinary had to be inside this top security vault, Harry was sure, and he leant forward eagerly, expecting to see fabulous jewels at the very least. But at first he thought it was empty. Then he noticed a grubby little package wrapped up in brown paper lying on the floor. Hagrid picked it up and tucked it deep inside his coat. Harry longed to know what it was, but knew better than to ask.
Come on, back in this infernal cart, and don't talk to me on the way back. It's best if I keep my mouth shut, said Hagrid.
One wild cart ride later, they stood blinking in the sunlight outside Gringotts. Harry didn't know where to run first now that he had a bag full of money. He didn't have to know how many galleons there were to a pound to know that he was holding more money than he'd had in his whole life. More money than even Dudley had ever had.
Might as well get your uniform,
said Hagrid, nodding towards Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions.
Listen, Harry, would you mind if I slipped off to a pick-me-up in a leaky cauldron? I hate them Gringotts carts.
He did still look a bit sick, so Harry entered Madame Malkin's shop alone, feeling nervous. Madame Malkin was a squat, smiling witch dressed in all in mauve. "Hogwarts, dear," she said, when Harry started to speak. Got the lot here. Another young man being fitted up just now, in fact. In the back of the shop, a boy with a pale, pointed face was standing on a footstool while a second witch pinned up his long black robes. Madame Malkin stood Harry on a stool next to him, slipped a long robe over his head, and began to pin it to the right length. We got 12 minutes left. Okay, can we get through this chapter? Ooh, doubtful. We'll try to get through it. "Hello," said the boy. "Hogwarts too?" "Yes," said Harry. "My father's next door buying my books, and my mother's up the street looking at ones," said the boy. He had a bored, drawling voice. Let me try that again. "My father's next door buying my books, and mother's up the street looking at ones," said the boy. He had a bored, drawling voice. "Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one, and I'll smuggle it in somehow." Harry was strongly reminded of Dudley. "Have you got your own broom?" the boy went on. "No," said Harry. "Play Quidditch at all?" "No," Harry said again, wondering what on earth Quidditch could be. "I do. Father said it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house, and I must say I agree. Know what house you'll be in yet?" "No," said Harry, feeling more stupid by the minute. "Well, no one really knows until they get there, do they? But I know I'll be in Slytherin. All our family have been. Imagine being in Hufflepuff. I think I'd leave. Wouldn't you?" "Mm-hmm," said Harry, wishing he could say something a bit more interesting. "I say, look at that man," said the boy suddenly, nodding towards the front window. Hagrid was standing there, grinning at Harry and pointing at 2 large ice creams to show he couldn't come in. Oh man, Hagrid is the best. Right now, he is my favorite character for sure. Oh, okay, you are all playing some kind of drinking game, hey? Okay, so is this kid a main character? Does he turn to a main character? Yes, I'll pay attention to some opinions on the voice. More arrogant, okay. Yeah, more oh, it's Malfoy, apparently, whoever that is. Okay. That's Hagrid, said Harry, pleased to know something the boy didn't. He works at Hogwarts. Oh, said the boy. I've heard of him. He's sort of a servant, isn't he? He's the gamekeeper, said Harry. He was liking the boy less and less every second. Yes, exactly. I heard he's sort of savage, lives in a hut in the school grounds, and every now and then he gets drunk, tries to do magic, and ends up setting fire to his bed. I think he's brilliant, said Harry coldly. Do you? Said the boy with a slight sneer. Why is he with you? Where are your parents? They're dead, said Harry shortly. He didn't feel much like going into the matter with this boy. Oh, sorry, said the other, not sounding sorry at all. But they were of our kind, weren't they? They were a witch and wizard, if that's what you mean. I really don't think they should let the other sort in, do you? They're just not the same. They've never been brought up to know our ways. Some of them have never been even heard of Hogwarts until they get the letter, imagine. I think they should keep it in the old wizarding families. What's your surname, anyway? But before Harry could answer, does that work?
Malfoy is smug and snooty and snobbish and above everybody.
Okay, snug, snooty, snobbish, above everybody.
Yeah.
So what is she describes him as having like a, what is this, drawl or something, like bored drawl? I guess it's like man.
Bored all the time, just doesn't give a shit.
Right. Okay. They were a witch and a wizard, if that's what you mean. Oh no, we already went through that. But before Harry could answer, Madame Malkin said, "That's you done, my dear." And Harry, not sorry for an excuse to stop talking to the boy, hopped down from the footstool. Well, I'll see you at Hogwarts, I suppose, said the drawling boy. I'll get there. Harry was rather quiet as he ate the ice cream Hagrid had bought him. Chocolate and raspberry with chopped nuts.
What's up?
Again, that doesn't seem like a very Hagrid. The yeah and what's up?
Yeah! What's up?
Those don't sound like Hagrid to me.
What's up?
Said Hagrid. Nothing, Harry lied. They stopped to buy parchment and quills. Harry cheered up a bit when he found a bottle of ink that changed color as he wrote. When they had left the shop, he said, Hagrid, what's Quidditch?
Blimey, Harry. I keep forgetting how little you know. Not knowing about Quidditch.
Don't make me feel worse, said Harry. He told Hagrid about the pale boy and Madame Malkin's. And he said people from Muggle families shouldn't even be allowed in.
You're not from a Muggle family. If he'd known who you were. He's grown up now, knowing your name if his parents are wizarding folk. You saw him in the Lakey Cauldron. Anyway, what does he know about it? Some of the best I ever saw were the only ones with magic in them, in a long line of Muggles. Look at your mum. Look what she had for a sister.
So what is Quidditch?
It's our sport. Wizard sport. It's like football in a Muggle world. Everyone follows Quidditch, played up in the air on broomsticks, and there's 4 balls. It's sort of hard to explain the rules.
And what are Slytherin and Hufflepuff?
School houses. There's 4. Everyone says Hufflepuff are a lot of duffers, but
I bet I'm in Hufflepuff, said Harry gloomily.
Better Hufflepuff than Slytherin, said Hagrid darkly. There's not a single witch or wizard who went bad who wasn't in Slytherin. You know who was one?
Sorry, you know who was at Hogwarts?
Years and years ago, said Hagrid.
Okay, I'm going to finish up this page because we're getting close to the end. And it just cuts off after 60 minutes. They brought Harry's school books in a shop called Flourish and Blots, where the shelves were stacked to the ceiling with books as large as paving stones bound in leather. Books the size of postage stamps and covers of silk. Books full of peculiar symbols and a few books with nothing in them at all. Even Dudley, who had never read anything, would have been wild to get his hands on some of these. Hagrid almost had to drag Harry away from curses and counter-curses. Bewitch your friends and befuddle your enemies with the latest... Witch your friends and befuddle your enemies with the latest revenges. Hair loss, jelly legs, tongue-tying, and much, much worse. By Professor Vindictus Viridian. I was trying to find out how to curse Dudley.
I'm not saying that's not a good idea, but you're not to use magic in the Muggle world, except in very special circumstances, said Hagrid. And anyway, you couldn't work any of them curses yet. You'll need a lot more study before you get to that level.
Hagrid wouldn't let Harry buy a solid gold cauldron either.
It says pewter on your list.
But they got a nice set of scales for weighing potion ingredients and a collapsible brass telescope. Then they visited the apothecary, which was fascinating enough to make up for its horrible smell. A mixture of bad eggs and rotted cabbages. Barrels of slimy stuffed food stood on the floor. Jars of herbs, dried roots, and bright powders lined the walls. Bundles of feathers, strings of fangs, and snarled claws hung from the ceiling. While Hagrid asked the man behind the counter for a supply of some basic potion ingredients for Harry, Harry himself examined silver unicorn horns at 21 gallons each and minuscule, glittery black beetle eyes. 5 nuts a scoop. Okay, I know it's not really a cliffhanger or a good point to end, but I don't want this to cut off before we actually finish the stream. Thanks for tuning in. Again, loving Hagrid more and more, and also liking this world that they're building. Pretty interesting. And yeah, the descriptions are just still some of my favorite things. It's really good writing. Thanks for tuning in. I hope it distracted you for an hour, and I will see you tomorrow again at 6 o'clock. Dexter says bye. Dexter, now he's gonna wake up. And so does Mark.
Oh, bye.
Bye-bye.